Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to business continuity, crisis management, resilience, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community plan for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Now, today is a really special day because I've got a bit of a celebrity on our show today in the industry, and who's going to share lots of information with us, I'm sure. In fact, it was a pleasure being with him at the end of last year, the end of October and the beginning of November, where I happened to attend two conferences with my guest today. And at both conferences, he won an award. So I'd like to have him pick my next lottery numbers since things are going quite well. And I'd like to welcome to the show today a special guest, Des O'Callahan. Des, welcome to the show.
Well, Alex, thank you for inviting me, first of all, and thank you for that lovely introduction. I've been called many things over the years. I'm not sure celebrity has ever been one of those. But yeah, we had a great conversation in London, and I think you were uniquely positioned to see firsthand that, yeah, I was stunned and flattered to win a couple of different awards like a week apart.
Yeah.
There you were for both of them. So just on a side note, so I've been buying lottery tickets and it hasn't worked. So you don't want me to buy your lottery ticket for you at all. Anyway, you and I did talk about the idea of me coming on your show. It's a privilege to be asked. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
My pleasure and long overdue. I think we tried a few years back, but
Possibly.
timings were,
Life
I was too
happens.
busy. Yeah, we couldn't connect. And then when you won your second award at the BCI World Conference in London, I was sitting right beside you, and you were stunned. It's like that sounds like me.
Genuinely. That was not an act. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was floored.
Well, congratulations on both of those.
Thank you.
So we're going to have a kind of like a fireside chat today and talk about your experiences, things you've learned, things you've seen. But one of the things I'd really like to know, because you have been around and you know so many people in the industry, how did you even get started in this industry?
That's a great question. People have been asking me that for a long time. And my answer hasn't really changed. So it is just over 35 years ago. And I guess I'll start off with my standard answer that, like many of my vintage, I kind of got into it by accident. I didn't set out looking for a career in business continuity management. I wouldn't have even known what the heck that was. And we weren't even calling it that yet. But way back, so 1989, I was working at the TD Bank. I'd been there for a number of years doing all kinds of different things. I kind of gravitated a bit towards the operational side. I wasn't a branch banker. I wasn't really a money guy. I was just naturally interested in operational stuff. And around the end of 89 is when I got into this, and the bank had completed a massive project that took them about 4 years and untold millions of dollars, building a second data center, computing center, and with it, a very robust disaster recovery plan for its computer center. So that unfolded over something like 4 years. And at the completion of that, around the end of 88, early 89, they recognized all very well and good. We've got this world-class DRP now, aren't we clever? What about the business? And they weren't alone in doing this. All of the big banks in Canada and other companies elsewhere, telcos and so on, we're also going through this thought process. What about the business? It's not only about the technology. So in the very, very early days of this brand new department called Business Recovery Planning, I was tapped on the shoulder, and apparently I was judged to be suitable for a role in this new department. I think partly because of my fairly rounded background, exposure to operations, familiarity with the head office structure. I knew lots and lots of the people and reasonably good communicator. I hope that's still true today. So it was judged that I might be a good fit for this brand new department. So I didn't really know what the heck I was getting into. But I thought, what the heck? I was persuaded it could be a good career move. So all kind of random. But in hindsight, an unbelievable opportunity because here I was literally in on the ground floor of a whole new profession, not just a new department in one organization, but a whole. So I was very, very fortunate in hindsight. I didn't realize at the time just how fortunate I was. Um, but I was lucky to have very, very good management above me. So my immediate boss, his boss, his boss's boss, like all the way up to the top of the organization, were very committed to this new activity. And I was also very fortunate that in taking this role on, and especially when within just a few months, my manager decided to leave the organization, went off to pursue a consulting career, and absolutely out of nowhere came this opportunity not only to be in this new department, but to run it. So I was very lucky. I was given ample opportunity um, to be creative, um, to uh, I had support to proceed with whatever I or we in our little group of 4 or 5 people felt was the right way to do something. What we were doing was on a blank sheet of paper. Um, so, there were no established best practices. There were no guidelines. There were no standards, no DRI. There was no BCI. There was basically nothing other than our own sort of natural common sense and a good relationship with other organizations, in particular the other banks, who were all doing similar things. So I was kind of in at the beginning of this whole thing and grew up with it. And in hindsight, what a privilege to have had that opportunity. And I'm still kicking around. I mean, I'm retired now, but I'm still kicking around the profession and remaining involved any which way I can. So, long-winded answer to a quick question. How did I get into it? By accident.
Well, many people did back
Yeah,
then. You're right. I
very
started a few years before Y2K. So you've got, a couple of years, shall we say, on me
a
as
few.
well.
Yeah,
And
cool.
even way back then, DRI wasn't around for you. BCI wasn't around. There were no online application tools or anything like that. It was Excel and Word documents. So you literally were there, not just on the ground floor, but you were also and did help build the basement, all the
I think
foundation
that's
that the
true.
ground floor sits on.
Yeah, I and many others, some of whom are still around. I remain very close friends with some of those early colleagues and mentors. Some sadly have left. Um, but that was part of the fun. That was part of the appeal, was that collegial togetherness of a whole bunch of people from very different backgrounds, kind of making it up as we went along and doing it together and comparing notes and yeah, kind of building, yeah, the basement's now solid. Let's build the first floor and the second floor and the third floor.
Well, during our break, before we even started recording, we said we probably ebb and flow our discussion and go off
Yeah.
topic because I know I got a few questions to ask. So I've asked you one question. Question number two, we're already off that list.
Oh, good.
Knowing that it was so new, and you were one of the first people, at least let's say in Canada, shall we say?
Hmm.
I know in general there's other people you mentioned, but how did you go about learning what needed to be done? Because none of that stuff was even there. So did it feel like you were going into it blind? Like, how did you figure out some of this?
A little bit blind, maybe. But you mentioned one thing, there were no online tools and so on. So when I got into this, bank had actually acquired a tool, um, like so offline, so installed on the 30-kilogram laptop computer of the day,
Mm.
which in 1989 was high end, 286 chip and all that. Um, so there was a little bit of sort of technology-based structure to what we were doing. And the reason I'm mentioning that is that the product we were using, which I learned to hate, but we'll come back to that topic later. Um, but it was a naturally evolved product from a preceding product that was used to document disaster recovery plans for data centers. So the general point here is that some of the methodologies, some of the approaches were actually building on methodology and approaches and tactics that had already been used looking at systems and applications. So now we were applying it to the business environment. So we weren't literally starting completely blind. We kind of had a general methodology to follow. What we needed to develop really was, I'll say, a business perspective on how to deal with some of these potential challenges. So instead of my data center just blew up, the ridiculous scenario now is my office tower just burned down, or we've evacuated our business premises, that kind of thing. So we're shifting the focal point from what's happening with the technology to what's happening to the end users of the technology. So not the technology itself, but everything else about the end user community. So the premises, the people, the vital records, and all that stuff. So some of that thinking and methodology already existed, but we were really embarking on data gathering in a new way, or gathering different kinds of data. And of course, the ever deadly, BIA, we didn't call it that where I was, called it criticality analysis, was really sort of the breakthrough approach. And we knew we needed to do it. Understand what the business's priorities are from a business perspective, understanding that technology dependency was there, but it was somewhat in good hands because we built this disaster recovery plan to technology. Now what? So when I say we were working on a blank sheet of paper, in a way we were, but it wasn't literally blank. We had some templates and models that had been borrowed from the preceding disaster recovery planning in the 80s, and we took that forward into the 90s. And we compared notes with others doing similar things. And there were other competing software products that emerged, not only the one that we'd already purchased when I sort of inherited it. So we did have a lot to go on. But again, we were still doing these things for the first time. We were interviewing departmental staff about things they'd never stopped to think about. So we were developing the techniques for doing that. That was all somewhat new, but it wasn't that there was zero foundation for it.
I always wondered that because I know when I started, I was working for a competing bank, the one you mentioned, when I started, and the templates would change so fast because everything was developing. So, it was Y2K was a set date, so you knew you were marching towards a set date. It wasn't moving on you. But templates kept changing. Oh, we're going to try this. We're going to try that. It's like, you can try all you want. That date's not moving. Like, come on. And you mentioned, you were kind of pulling things together from existing sources. And I guess that's what the people I were doing, working with was doing as well, pulling from all these different sources, but it was changing so fast. Is
True.
that one of the things you've seen over the years? Is that from when you started to now, 2025, that things have changed so fast and seem to be changing even
Well,
faster now?
some things obviously have changed, or they've evolved. One of the things I firmly believe is that a lot of the foundational stuff, or the core practices that were just coming together in the 90s, haven't fundamentally changed, but some of the way we execute, the techniques of data gathering or um, connecting information, building plans, yeah, it's sort of a moving target in a way. So one of the first things I found we were doing, so we had this software product and we had these templates that came out of it, and data buckets. To get on with the practical work we needed to do, we kind of stripped those out, ported them into Word documents. I think it was Word Perfect initially, and then Word, and then Excel. We kind of needed user-friendly capabilities to manipulate this information, or to create friendly templates that we could distribute through the organization in a common platform like Word or Word Perfect, rather than some esoteric, specialized tool that nobody else knew anything about. So yeah, templates are very useful, but they're not the end game. They're just a step in the direction of getting the information we need so we can analyze it, understand it, and then use it. But yeah, they've never stopped. They've never stopped changing, or we create new templates for new things. Emphasis shifts from one particular concern to another. So on the one hand, I'd say some of the basics are fundamentally unchanged. If you look at the professional practices, whether it's DRI's 10 or BCI 6 or whatever, they haven't really changed in 30 years. You know, how we do some of this stuff, yeah, that we've changed how we do some of this stuff. We've tweaked them, we relabel them, we call them different things, but the basics are still the basics, and they're largely unchanged for good reason. They work. But what we do evolve is just how we do some of this down to a fairly detailed level of, again, data gathering techniques or tools. And heaven knows there's a million tools out there, and they've evolved massively. So yeah, on the one hand, foundation is solid, hasn't changed. On the other hand, the nitty-gritty detail of how we do things has never stopped changing, and has probably changed in ways I don't even know because I've been actively practicing now for a few years. So I won't say I'm out of touch, but I'm not currently using the latest, best version of whatever product, or the latest templates. I mean, I think if you Google, BIA template, you're going to get like a million hits. So
Yeah.
What's more important is understanding what the heck a BIA is and why you do it, and what you can do with the information once you've got it. That's what hasn't really changed, is the fundamental concept, for good reason.
Yeah.
It's still fundamental.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for everyone in the profession, if you don't understand the foundations, those tools and all those fancy bells and buttons and things that come with it, you're not going to understand how to use them properly. And if you can't use them properly, then the people you're trying to get information from aren't going to be giving you the right information you need,
Absolutely.
because
That's
you don't understand the foundation, why you're doing it.
perennial challenge. Yeah. You have to grasp it and be able to explain it. And
Yeah,
then also keep the other participants in the process tuned in the right way, because not a one person job. This is, throughout a large organization, especially, it's dozens, even hundreds of people contributing to the effort.
yeah,
So it needs to be orchestrated, and that's why there is reason or a good rationale for having some of
yeah,
these automated tools is to bring efficiency into the game without losing sight of the fundamental purpose behind
yeah.
doing these things.
On that note, we've come to the end of our first segment. We are talking with Des O'Callahan today, and we will be right back. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.